Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, and welcome back to our Challenge Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. Yes, now in the last episode of this series, we built a we built a lovely lazy river, and I've just gone away between episodes, and I've got just a lot of detailing done around here. You know, a lot of the menial things that just needed doing and just would take up a bit of time on camera. So this is the state of things now. We've also completely roofed off this half of the building, and we've now kind of sorted out all of this, which is fun. So, what are we doing in today's episode? Well, you might notice a lovely set of platforms here in the middle, and that is what we're doing today. We are building we are building some water slides. I thought it was about high time. So, before we properly get into it, what am I saying? Just get on with that time lapse. Yes, hello and welcome back to the time lapse. I say welcome back as if we haven't already done a time lapse this episode, but we prevail with this, the time lapse for this episode. And yes, we are building a couple of water slides today here in our water park in the Challenge Park episode, Challenge Park here in Planet Coaster 2. So, we're actually going to do a couple of different slides today, which is quite fun because it means we are doing quite a bit, to be fair. You know, you think, oh, what are we going to do this episode? Let's do 1 or 2 water slides. No, we are actually getting a full 4 water slides and more done in this episode. So, it's a bit of a jam-packed episode, hence why it is slightly longer than usual, but that doesn't detract because it is quite a fun episode regardless. So we're starting off here with a double inner tube flume. And for those of you who have watched me build this water park up from the ground will know that a couple of episodes ago I said that this whole complex itself was inspired by the Splash Water World at Butlins in Minehead, and this is very much still true with these slides, as we've got this first one here, our raft slide, very much inspired by their raft slide, the Master Blaster. Now I believe that is the model name, but they also used it as the name for the raft slide itself. So we are not going down that naming convention here. But we are very much using the same type of slide in the same way, because I really just like the way that it looks, kind of swooping down over the deep end and the beach section of this whole complex, which is quite fun. Now, just making sure that it doesn't get stuck in the tunnel, we're coming down here through the windows. These all need to have glass put in them. But that aside, just getting that done, we can come into here and put a run-out lane onto it. Now this is the one that I wanted to definitely have run-out lane because it felt like it's the one that would naturally have a run-out lane, and just getting that in there like that, that just feels quite nice, and I like the small splashdown it has at the end. It feels really nice and I like where it is. And very, very quickly, let's give it a ride, make sure you can get through it all. And that you just lose all the speed at the end. So instead, let's make that launch a little bit faster, and let's see what happens. Again, very much a process of going through it and seeing what happens, and much better results there. Let's stick with that, which is quite cool. So, and with that, we are not even 5 minutes into the episode, and we've got our first water slide basically done. When I said we're going to get a lot done this episode, I meant it. And this isn't sped up any more than usual. It's just these almost came a little bit naturally to me. You know, it's not. I thought this was going to take absolutely ages and be slightly weird because I'm used to, you know, creating things in Planet Coaster 1 and doing, you know, rides and roller coasters and stuff like that. But actually, this wasn't too bad, and I really felt like I kind of worked my way into these, and they just felt nice. But yes, so that is the first of our slides done in this complex, and it is called Splashworks. Now, as I say, this was really my time to come in and just play around with these flumes, because again, I've never really played around with them before, so I thought, actually, what would be better than giving it a go here? And so yeah, we've got Splashworks in the first of the 4 slides that is going to end up out on this complex here, which is quite fun. Just getting rid of the glass and any kind of bits and pieces there. That all looks nice, and we can finally put some colour on it. I did toy with having this slightly nauseating yellow on it, but it just stood out slightly too much. So instead we go for a nice, what I can only describe as IKEA blue. If I'd kept the yellow on there, it would have fully been IKEA, but there we go. And the last thing we will do to this is get some of these supports in. You know, I've never really played around with custom supports. The only place really I've played around with them before this is on the lift hill, the cable lift for Sakura, over in our, well, that being our lovely little kind of boomerang coaster in this park. So I thought this would just give me a chance to come in and try something else like this, and lo and behold, it's working. So just getting these supports in here. Again, I know it feels a little bit weird to have them in the middle of the pool, but I think it just works. And if people decide to swim through them, oh well, that's their mistake. And there we go. But I thought that just looked a little bit better than having many supports that were just smaller and a lot more kind of inconsequential. So what I might do between episodes is actually go back and sort of add some ceiling rafters and stuff, so that these bits of slide actually are also propped up by the ceiling, which could be quite fun. And then coming out here to the other bit of the slide, let's get in some other support braces, and this is going to be all braced from the side, because I thought that'd be slightly more interesting than having these pillars here, and I didn't want them to be half in the pool, half on the path or whatever. So I thought actually this would be the best way to do it. And is it realistic? Not quite, because it means that all the load is being bared into the wall, and is that healthy? Probably not. But there we go. It's it's a process of, this doesn't need to be entirely realistic, you know. But as long as I can have fun with it, and I certainly am having fun with it here. You know, this all looks really nice with the way that it looks. And I will give you a spoiler that by the end of this episode, we will have basically almost finished the pool complex, which is sad. It's sad, but it means that we can finally get onto something new in this park. But yeah, so moving on to our next slide, we are building a circular infinity pool as the catch pool for it. And you may be asking yourself, oh, what is it? What is it? We are going to be building, well, firstly, from this top platform, we're going to have a number of slides. But the one that's going into that catch pool there is going to be a slide that ends with a bowl, because those are just iconic. And I thought, actually, you know, you have multiple types of slides in a complex. You have the raft slide, you have the slide that's not as intense for kids, you've got the slide that's slightly more intense, and then you've got the bowl. And I thought, actually, a bowl would work really well for this. So yeah, with those 3 in, let's build the other catch pool for the other 2 slides. And that's going in here. And there we go, that's a bit of a catch pool. I only did these catch pools because I didn't quite want to have... I only built these catch pools because I didn't want to kind of encounter the problem of having to kind of turn around and kind of make longer space for run-out lanes, because that just felt a little bit odd. So we are starting off here with our quote-unquote kiddie slide. It's not for kids explicitly, but it is the most tame of the three, having just a little bit of a helix and a little bit of a second helix before you kind of come to the end here and you go down into the catch pool. Very, very simple, very easy, which is all fun. And you can see me now trying to come up with a name for it, which we will gloss over all of the names that I try to go for, because I try to find one and I'm like, I don't like any of these names. Let me see if I can find any words online that I might like. And I didn't. I really didn't. So we end up with, if I'm here kind of getting one, we do not stick with conveyor, because conveyor is not a nice name. And then I go put these green kind of things on there, and then I go, ooh, that's almost like Mario pipes. Let's call this pipeline. So there we go. That is pipeline in our first of the three flumes up at the top, which is quite fun. So that's all good. That is brilliant. And then getting a stairway up to the top. That stairway is just over the other side. And yeah, now I do toy around with how I want this staircase to be, because ultimately, you know, I wanted everything to be held really nicely and compactly inside this middle kind of section, and it just doesn't. So I've had to compromise slightly, but you know, I think it works. And yeah, that if there's one thing in this game that slightly infuriates me, it's the fact that it is the slight difficulty that occurs when trying to add more bits onto a flume, and a flume platform. But there we go. That is all in. That looks quite nice. I'm just taking it down to that little bit of section there and sticking that there. That's quite good. And it means we've got space, which is fun. Now moving on to our second of the three sides. This is the slightly more intense of the two kind of regular body slides that we've got. So, you know, you come out, you dip down, you do a helix round, you do a second helix, and then that takes you down into the pool, which is quite fun. You know, you can't complain too much about things like these because it just works, which is quite nice. And yeah, getting that in there again, it's quite nice, and I think it works well enough for what it is. So there we go, a bit of a POV there with some alright stats. You know, you can't complain too much, but there we go. Now kind of getting a name into this. This is named Void because I wanted it to be entirely in the dark with this sort of very kind of black colour scheme, and I think it works quite well. Now moving on to the last of these three flume slides. We're following sort of a similar path in that you go down at the same level and then you dip, and then here you kind of come around into a bit of a helix, as we so frequently do on these, before coming back round at speed, you know, as casually as you do before we head through this window here. I like aiming for the windows. It's quite nice to kind of have these places where I can go, okay, that's where I'm going to aim for, and then obviously coming into there and popping that down there, and that is our very, very lovely bowl slide in, and that just works so well. So again, we're not even halfway through the episode. We've got all three of our flumes in with our other slide. So one might ask, what are we going to do for the rest of this episode? Well, it's theming it all up and just making sure it all works. And speaking of theming, this flume, this bowl flume is now called Plug Hole because, you know, it acts a bit like a sink. And I thought Plug Hole would be quite a nice name. As you will see later, there are kind of reasons for said name, which is quite fun, and I like it. But yes, just coming in there, getting rid of the supports so that it doesn't all feel like it's like the supports are cluttering up the entirety of the indoor part of the park. And then we go. And then putting a roof over the complex just to see how it looks. And thankfully there was enough clearance just about, which I didn't even plan, so I suppose I can pat myself on the back for that one. Then adding supports onto the back half here, so that, you know, it actually looks okay with the supports outside. That is all fun. And yeah, you know, what more can I say? We've built a couple of slides, and does any more need to be said about that? So coming in now, we are just building up the the little tower in which these will sit, because obviously this is higher than the rest of the park, well, the rest of the water complex. So, you know, you want to have it kind of look right amongst everything else. So we are just building a little bit of a tower for it to sit in. Obviously, you'll be able to see this tower from the inside, but I think that look quite nice, and I think it does look quite nice what we end up with at the end. So, coming into here now, we can just put the roof on this section finally. It does start to get a little bit dark inside, but that's something we can sort out in a bit. And ultimately, you know, I don't have enough time to come through and place many, many millions of lights in these episodes, so between episodes I will come in and I will add all the lighting for this, so in the next episode we can come in and we can finish this whole bit off, which is quite sad, but I do have some fun stuff planned for the next episode when I record it, so that should all be quite good. Now coming in here, we're adding these corrugated walls, kind of the arches in as the sort of support structure for this, for the tower, sorry. Yeah, again, I think it looks quite nice. It's a little bit cluttered, but I think that it works for the slightly industrial feel of this. And coming in, it is now time to to find out why I've named it Plug Hole. That is because we are adding just a little bit of theming here and there, and I won't say too much about it until it becomes more apparent, because, you know, where's the fun in not letting you guess? So we're kind of coming in with these aquatic pipe pieces, placing them down, and kind of making them feel quite nice around here, and then popping one up there. You know, it looks quite nice. I really like the way that this turned out. And yeah, coming in and placing these bigger pipes, just so we can connect it up to the floor, and we've built a tap. It's quite crude, it's quite, you know, rudimentary, but I really like the way that it looks kind of around all of this, because it just feels right, if that makes any sense. Kind of, it felt quite nice, quite interesting to sort of have this tap sit here and sit over the sit over the bowl, to give it sort of a reason for it to be called Plug Hole, and I quite like that. It's quite cute, and I think it works. So, you know, that just about sums all of that up. Now, the other thing that I wanted to put a fountain jet in there, just to make it so that water actually did flow from the tap into the thing, and just putting in some bubbles as well. It just made it feel slightly, you know, slightly silly, slightly whimsical, and I think it worked. The other thing I was going to do is add a splash effect, but it was just too big. You know, I really wanted it so that people would come in, they'd slide down through the slide, they'd go into the bottom, then it would splash up, but it just didn't work in the way that I wanted it to, so I had to compromise instead by putting these massive, massive bubbles, and it just, again, it's slightly silly. Is it slightly out of budget? Possibly, but we've got all this money for the park now, it's only right that we use it. And yeah, we're kind of putting in these sequences here so that we can actually kind of deactivate and then activate them once people have slid down the bowl. This doesn't quite work in the way that I wanted, but you know, I can make do with what I've got, which is quite fun. But yeah, you can see that that's all there. The water is flowing and it looks quite nice, so I can't complain too much about that at all. And then moving in, we need to assign some staff up to the top so people can actually start riding these rides. So we pop a couple of fellas down and we assign one to these top ropes. And yeah, that is all of this done. So now what we can do is we can come in and we can properly finish off the tower up the top here. And what we do that with some of these curved aquatic slopes to kind of for where we're going to stick the roof, and these large windows. You know, that's one of the things that I wanted for this, is that I wanted you to be able to look over kind of bits of the park and whatever, and kind of see kind of far into the distance. The only problem with this tower is that because there's 3 slides on here, you know, these don't go in nicely, so instead we had to make do by going, okay, let's get many corrugated walls in at different sizes, just so we can make it feel alright. But what we end up with, I think, does work really well for what I wanted it to look like, and the effect just works, if I'm being honest. You know, these come in here, you go plop, plop, and plop, and they're all in. And yeah, and then we kind of coming in, popping this sloped roof on here so we can keep the roof sort of consistent with everything we've already got, and it just looks, again, quite nice for what we've got. And we can hide bits and pieces there, make sure nobody falls out, and I like it. Like, I think it looks really cool. And then obviously getting that side on there with a slightly different variation on the roof, it just works in a way that just makes me really happy, and it just scratches an itch. And speaking of scratching an itch, these roofs here, kind of with our raft flume, these corrugated aquatic curves fit perfectly over it, and it means that we can fully box this in, and it just works so well. And again, it's one of the things that I couldn't have planned out even if I tried. So now you've just got this little tower over the top that's unassuming and everything like that, and I think it just works. So obviously between episodes I'm going to have to come in here, theme this all up and make sure that this all works, but on a fundamental level, you know, it just looks quite nice. And obviously in here now, this also looks quite good. And there's one more thing that we're going to do this episode, and that is to create a raft, sort of a raft redistribution system to kind of take the rafts back up to the top. And I just really like the way that this turns out. You know, you come in here, you stick a raft on there, and it takes it up to the top. And it isn't perfect because I'm nowhere near kind of as good at this sort of placing down bits and pieces thing as other people are. And I'm not as good at custom animatronics, which is what this basically is. But I think what we get works quite well. So we secure it in with this wire for the aquatic wall stuff, and then just coming in here, getting some art pieces. What we can do is we can build a conveyor belt, and it just looks quite nice. Now, I'm proud of everything we've done this episode, and I've really enjoyed it. Very soon we are going to be going back to real time, so if you have enjoyed this, then please feel free to, as I'll say in a bit, give me a like, give me a comment, give me a subscribe, and you can come back for the next episode, which will release in a couple of days, where we just finish off this complex. I'll see you in real time. Okay, so, yeah, welcome back to real time, and we have got a ton done in this episode. Obviously, we've put the roof over this whole bit, and we built 4 water slides. We've got our splash works here, our lovely tube flume that will basically take you all around before taking you to the splashdown segment here. So you can't complain about that too much. If we wait here for a moment, we will wait for it to come along. If it does. Here they come. And spadosh. Nice. So we have that alongside the lovely lift that takes them back up. I am quite happy with how that turned out. It's small, but I like it. Moving on round, you've got the catch pool for the lovely. That's the name of the person. The lovely plug hole. There we go. Which is quite fun, and I can't complain too much about that. And then here we have the catch pool for our other 2 flumes, that being Pipeline and Void. And I like all of these. I like how they all turned out, and I think they all kind of work in their own special way, which is all quite fun. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, then please feel free to give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a subscribe, if I'm lucky enough, and I will see you within the next episode. Ta-ta. Roll that outro.